Meanwhile, in the state legislature, revulsion and shock at the accusations leveled against Schneiderman by 4 women in the New Yorker. Schneiderman is accused of drug abuse as well as domestic violence. Over the years, liberals have accused Cuomo of working too closely with Senate Republicans. However, late last year, Cuomo endorsed a plan that would unite the 2 factions of Democrats in the chamber and give the party control sometime this year. The Capitol, Nick Reisman, Spectrum News. Cuomo's $168 billion budget proposal overall calls for $1 billion in new taxes and fees in order to close a $4.4 billion shortfall. It's those tax and fee proposals that led Senator John DeFrancisco to launch his bid for the Republican nomination for governor. Now, back in March, Governor Cuomo and state lawmakers agreed to a provision in the budget that was aimed at softening the blow of the expected Janus ruling. In essence, it allows labor unions to set the timetable for when a member could potentially leave. At the Capitol, Nick Reisman, Capitol Tonight. New York remains the most unionized state in the country, even as membership has fallen across the nation. Opponents contend that makes the state less business-friendly. However, union members say it gets them peace of mind. Cuomo, as governor over the years, has sought to avoid broad-based increases in taxes. However, this year he faces a $4.4 billion budget deficit. And analysts say that even with the $1 billion in new tax and fee increases that he's proposed, the revenue is not necessarily a guarantee. Governor Andrew Cuomo in September faces a Democratic primary against actress and education advocate Cynthia Nixon. But at the second and final day of the state Democratic convention, Cuomo was focused on November.
This election is very, very important, and literally the nation is going to look to us. We are about to embark on the most consequential campaign in our lifetime.
And Cuomo is in particular focused on someone who's not even on the ballot, President Donald Trump, whose policies and personality are expected to lead to a backlash for Republicans and be a boon to Democrats.
We must overcome the current national extreme conservative movement that is threatening this nation.
Over the last 2 days of the convention, Cuomo was endorsed first by Hillary Clinton, and then on Thursday, DNC Chairman Tom Perez and former Vice President Joe Biden, receiving the support of national Democrats.
It's an easy lift. Folks, there's a lot of ugliness in our politics right now. That means we're going to have to fight for the vision of the nation we know is possible.
At the same time, Cuomo called on Democrats to do better and recover from the loss to Trump and Republicans in 2016.
And the hard truth is that in the last presidential election, Donald Trump and the right wing did not win. It's that the Democratic Party lost that election. Why did we lose the election? Because we lost the connection with who we are.
Cuomo has sought to bolster his support from liberals by pushing for a Democratic takeover of the state Senate.
Heard the list of all the progressive accomplishments that we've gone through. That was with the Republican Senate. Can you imagine what we're going to get done when we have a Democratic Senate?
Republicans, however, hope to counter all of this, nominating Dutchess County Executive Mark Molinaro, who has raised his own moderate profile heading into the election. Molinaro did not actually vote for Trump. In fact, he wrote in former Congressman Chris Gibson, who is the chairman of his campaign. In Hempstead, Nick Reisman, Spectrum News. State lawmakers and Governor Andrew Cuomo continued Tuesday to negotiate a nearly $170 billion spending plan that could reignite a push to increase pay for members of the state assembly and state senate. A pay commission in the final agreement? I don't know yet. Sources Tuesday told Capitol Tonight talks were underway that would bring back a commission that would determine whether lawmakers receive their first pay increase since 1999. Legislators earn a base salary of $79,500, but many earn more through stipends for leadership posts. Legislative leaders emerged after a meeting with Cuomo not denying that a commission was being discussed.
That is not resolved.
But at the same time, they were also evasive on the details of how it would work.
We're not tweaking anything.
So you're not going to make any adjustments to the Legislative Compensation Commission that they had?
I'm saying I got to go talk to the members, but I don't understand what you mean by tweaking, but I got to go talk to the members.
A legislative pay commission last considered salary increases in 2016, but the panel ultimately declined to boost legislative pay amid a parallel push for an end-of-year special session.
The last time they had a pay commission, it was basically controlled by the governor and the legislative leaders, and because of some other deal, that's what blew it up. And that's the problem.
NYPIRG's Blair Horner says that if a new commission to consider a hike in pay for lawmakers is created, it needs to be independent.
This is a political football. The best way to deal with it is to take it out of the hands of the governor and the legislature and give it to an independent commission.
Meanwhile, on Tuesday, lawmakers insisted they were close to an overall agreement once again, with independent Democratic Conference leader Jeff Klein saying there was a tentative deal.
Well, I think we're all on the same page that we have to respond to the federal changes to our tax plan, which I think we're going to be able to do. I think we're going to come up with the monies for the shortfall fund for health care, again, in response to the federal government.
State lawmakers on Tuesday also confirmed criminal justice reform measures such as creating a system of cashless bail in New York has fallen out of the budget talks. State Capitol, Nick Reisman, Spectrum News.
Joining us now is Capitol Tonight's Nick Reisman from our State Capitol Bureau. Nick, what can we expect to see in the next couple of days?
Well, that's right. You know, it's shaping up to be something of a busy day in Albany, but classically, not a lot may get done today. And this comes as there is a logjam in the state Senate, currently tied at 31 votes apiece for Republicans and Democrats. Mid-May being the last time a bill lawmaker, Senator Tom Croce of Long Island, is on military leave. He's retiring at the end of the year. It's likely that he is not going to be returning before the end of the June 20th legislative session. Now, if both sides vote in blocks, 31 votes apiece, that means neither side has enough votes, 32, needed in order to pass any bills. Lawmakers in the state Senate have not actually passed any legislation over the last month or so, mid-May being the last time a bill passed in the state Senate. Now, all of this comes as the session is starting to wind down, and there are a number of local level measures that still need to get done, typically mundane but nevertheless very important items such as extending sales and occupancy taxes for local governments. Meanwhile, there's a political dimension to all of this. Cynthia Nixon, the governor's Democratic gubernatorial primary opponent, is in Albany. She is going to be speaking later on in the afternoon, and this all comes also as Governor Cuomo is in town. He, however, has no public schedule. That's the latest from here at the State Capitol Bureau. I'm Nick Reisman. Let's send it back to you guys.
All right, that is our Nick Reisman reporting. Nick, thank you so much.
What's the status of the filtration system right now and the latest test samples? What sort of results have you guys been getting so far?
Well, the filtration system, the larger village-wide filtration system is now complete. It's installed, and they're beginning to flush the lines. Lines will be cleaned out over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be taking tests periodically to ensure that the water is safe to drink.
All right, so, you know, just what's the status also of identifying a permanent solution to all of this right now? And just as a follow-up, for the folks who have private wells, what's their solution?
Right, well, the governor announced a couple of weeks ago that we would launch an aggressive investigation to find an alternate source of water, clean water. So we've started that. We launched it a week and a half ago, and are now exploring everything from alternate groundwater supplies, surface water supplies, alternate treatment options. We want to make sure that the water system ultimately for the town is the purest possible. So we have an aggressive schedule to do that, and that will ultimately provide a clean source of drinking water for the village. On the private wells, as you may know, we've been doing installations. Actually, at the request of the homeowners, we've been doing installations in homes. We've got over 200 requests to date so far. We've installed over 50. We have all of our teams in town 7 days a week doing some of these installations right now, and it's been working fairly well.
What's going on right now with the public water supply? Is there a reason for concern for New Yorkers?
Well, the governor launched last week this statewide water quality task force, and I'm co-chairing that with Dr. Zucker, Commissioner of Health. We want to take a statewide approach to all these problems, understand where all the problems are, and begin providing solutions as quickly as possible. The solutions ultimately to clean water is going to take a lift from all levels of government, federal, state, local. I mean, we have, thankfully, in New York, a very robust financing program for municipalities to upgrade their treatment systems. We do over $1 billion a year in financing for projects.
So, Commissioner, what are we looking at right here?
This is one of the 7 wells that the village of Hoosick Falls has been drawing groundwater from. In fact, it's unfortunately right below the Saint-Gobain property where some of the contamination began. So the groundwater that was polluted from Saint-Gobain, we believe, traveled underground right to this well, right to actually several wells in this area.
Honeywell and Saint-Gobain have been identified as the main causes of this PFOA contamination. What's the state seeking from these companies right now? What sort of legal action might the state be taking ultimately?
Right. Well, we have put both companies on notice that we intend to use the state Superfund authority to require a full cleanup. And what that's going to involve is not just cleaning up the contamination in the ground, but in fact paying for the alternate water supply and paying for clean water to go out to the community.
News of the day has been Petersburg, and that there's a potential PFOA issue in that community as well. You know, there was a story that the DEC first was initially notified about the PFOA contamination there, I believe about 11 years ago.
Right, 2005, that's
and
right.
I know that wasn't considered to be a regulated chemical contaminant at that point. Should that have been regulated at the time when it was first, raised as an issue potentially?
Well, certainly in hindsight, yes. I mean, PFOA should be regulated. Should have been regulated back then. I mean, there are thousands of chemicals that are not regulated that we don't know a great deal about. That unfortunately we find out about over time. This legacy of toxic contamination is not new to New York.